Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's EBC video. We're in the Gulf of Venice on an island, and in the next couple of days we're going to get a chance to visit some of the most renowned places involving St. Mark that exist on the globe. But today we're thinking about Mark 12 verses 41 to 44, and I want to use this little church behind me and some of the experiences we've had over the last week to think about these verses. Now, in Mark 12, in these verses, Jesus is in the temple watching as lots of rich people come and put large sums of money into the treasury at the temple. And then there is a woman who comes with her last 2 coins and puts those 2 coins into the treasury. And Jesus comments that she's given more than all of those other people out of their abundance had given. And I think that when we think about these verses in terms of our own stewardship, there's sometimes a bit of negativity that's involved in that, and sort of thinking about we're sort of never doing enough. And I want to flip that a little bit toward we're confident that Jesus isn't keeping track on sort of a how much did you put in, but rather how heartfelt your gift is. And let me use, first of all, this church to start that, which is we have here, by the way, a 20th century church that was built, and it's not the largest church we've seen this whole time. It's certainly not the most grand as churches go that we've seen this time. It is not as big, for instance, as the beautiful churches we saw in other parts of Italy. It's certainly not as big as the churches we're going to see in Venice. But I don't think any of us would assume for a moment that in the early 20th century, when this church was being built, that God was thinking, man, you didn't go big enough. Or I wish that somebody had made it even more beautiful. Or even God sitting there thinking, I wish that church were better because people didn't give every last dime that they had. The gift is the place for people to worship. And as we see this church, just like all the other churches in Italy, we are reminded of the faith that people have. And that faith is, I think, part of the rest of the story that goes with this woman and her 2 copper coins, is the demonstrable faith that she had. It's not necessarily just about her putting her last 2 coins in, although Jesus certainly does emphasize that in other parts of the Bible as well. But we can take from this story the fact that this woman has faith to put all that she had to live on into the church treasury, confident that God also is there looking out for her. But then I also want to focus for a moment on why it is that we give. As we've been experiencing all these gorgeous, ornate cathedrals and churches throughout Italy as we've been going, we have spent a lot of time on tours, going into these churches, seeing gold and silver and frescoes on all of the ceilings. And I want you to picture for a moment that we've got all of these sort of tourism things happening. You put an earpiece in your ear, somebody is telling you what you're seeing as you're going by. People are just tromping through the churches. And in Italy, there is a lot of use of these churches, not as tour people, but as people who go in to worship at all times of the day. And as we go through seeing these gorgeous, beautiful buildings, pretending that they're sort of just simply secular, ornate, golden, domed buildings, the answer is these people are still worshiping God in these buildings. And I think that's part of the story too, is making sure that we're still thinking about the fact that we're not just building buildings with our money. We're not just doing great locations with our money. We're doing great deeds. When we give to God, there's a purpose, and the purpose is the works that happen. This little building here, by the way, happens to be one that's been renovated away from being a church every day, although it does still have weddings, but it's now more of an event center. And I want to focus on the idea that as we're actually giving, we're thinking about perpetuating not just the building, but perpetuating Jesus' love in all of our actions and the actions of our church in the world. So everyone, have a great week.